Hello everyone. Today our topic is the view of Sigmund Freud in human development. So remember that the perspective of Sigmund Freud is called psychoanalysis. There are different perspectives in human growth and development. We have psychoanalysis, we have behaviorism, we also have cognitivism and other perspectives. But the perspective of Sigmund Freud is called psychoanalysis. And when it comes to psychoanalysis, the view is telling us this way that who you are today is because of your experiences in the past. So meaning your personality today may be defined by the factors that you have experienced when you were young. So meaning your behavior may be traced back to what you have experienced in the past, which made you who you are today. That's the theory of Sigmund Freud. That's the perspective of Sigmund Freud. And a lot of theories sparred from this psychoanalytic perspective. Aside from his own theory, which is called the psychosexual development, there is also the theory of Erik Erikson, which is called the psychosocial theory of development, which became very, very relevant in human growth and development when it comes to education. Okay? But today, let us get into the theory of Sigmund Freud, which is known to us the psychosexual theory of development. Let's look into the stages of psychosexual development. Okay? Remember that Sigmund Freud is looking into the experiences of the person in the past. Since it is in the past, we're gonna look in discussing these stages of development, we're gonna look at the stages in the sense that aside from what the child experienced before, what will be the impact of these things in the future of the person. Remember that these impacts, or meaning the impacts of these stages of development to the person, is known to cause what we call fixation. Fixation would mean that those things that you have overly experienced before or failed to experience before would cause manifestation in your behavior sa future, at yung manifestation na ito ay tinatawag na fixation. Kapag sinabi na na-fixate ka, ibig sabihin, may nangyari nung past mo na hindi ka na-satisfy o na-over-satisfy ka. Kaya hanggang sa pagtanda mo, gusto mo pa yung gawin, pero magmamanifest siya sa ibang gawain, sa ibang behavior. Okay? So, that's the basic concept that you have to remember, fixation. Okay? Now, the first stage of development, according to Sigmund Freud, psychosexual stages of development, is of course the oral stage. Okay? Oral stage, of course, is happening during birth to 24 months. This is during infancy. Okay? And the erogenous zone or the pleasure area of the person or of an infant is of course the mouth. Yun yung erogenous area niya. Ibig sabihin ng erogenous area, doon nang gagaling yung pleasure ng bata or ng satisfaction ng bata doon sa bibig niya. At dahil infant siya, ang significant person sa bata ng mga panahong ito ay yung mother. Bakit yung mother? Kasi dito sa nanay, siya nakakakuha ng tender loving care or TLC. In the absence of the mother, we also have the mother figure. You can have there the guardian or the grandmother or the auntie. Basta yung tao na nagbibigay ng care sa kanya, or we call them the primary caregiver. So minsan, ang primary caregiver natin ay yung father. But most of the time, it's the mother and other female figures. Okay? Now, ano yung kailangang ma-receive during the oral stage? Of course, satisfaction of the mouth. Pag sinabing satisfaction of the mouth, it means optimal satisfaction of the mouth by feeding. Feeding the child, yung pagpapakain sa bata using the feeding bottle or yung breastfeeding ni nanay or pagbibigay ng food galing sa caregiver. Milk, yun yung dapat na masatisfy. Kaso, during this stage of development, there are things that we call unsatisfied needs or overly satisfied needs. Ang tawag natin dun sa unsatisfied needs ay early weaning. W-E-A-N-I-N-G. Weaning. Pag sinabing weaning, yun yung pag-awat na dun sa bata sa pagdede. Kapag maagang, dapat alamin natin kung kailan saktong dapat awatin yung bata. Kasi dapat magkaroon ng optimal satisfaction yung erogenous zone ng bata na yung mouth. Ma'am, ano kaya ang mangyayari kapag hindi nagkaroon ng satisfaction dun sa oral stage? Ang tawag natin dun kapag nagkaroon ng early weaning. Ano ang mangyayari? Siyempre, merong oral fixation. At ang oral fixation kapag early weaning is of course oral receptive. Anong ibig sabihin ng oral receptive? Ibig sabihin nun, nagkulang sa satisfaction yung bata. So, gusto pa rin niya na masatisfy. Okay? Gusto pa rin niya na masatisfy. Gusto pa rin niya na magkaroon pa ng satisfaction. Pwede rin naman na magkaroon ng oral aggression kasi noong inawat yung bata, gumamit ng mga instrumento para awatin. Sapat na sana yung winning stage meaning nagkaroon ng optimal satisfaction. Sakto dun sa stage na i-win na yung bata. Kaso ang ginawa, aggressive yung naging instrument sa pag-awat sa bata. Let's say for example, ang ginamit, I know you've heard this before, ang ginagamit nila nilalagyan ng sile, yung chupon ng bata. It's very, very wrong. It could cause fixation. At the same time, there are those ampalayan naman o kaya kape o anything na which will make the child not want to get the milk from the feeding bottle. Yun yung mga ginagawa nilang instrument. Of course, that would cause fixation. Now, aside from that, pwede ring magkaroon ng fixation kapag ka naman overly satisfied. Ano naman yung overly satisfied? Yung ang tanda na dumedede pa rin siya. Instead of transferring from the feeding bottle to the glass or to the cup, ang nangyayari hanggang sa 5 years old na, 6 years old na, dumedede pa rin sa chupon yung bata. That is causing over-satisfaction to the child. And it will again cause oral fixation. Okay? So, ngayon tingnan natin. Ano ang mga oral fixations? Nabanggit na natin kanina. There are two types of oral fixation. We call it oral receptive. The other one is oral aggressive. So, tingnan nyo mabuti sa sarili ninyo. May oral fixation ba ako? Tanungin nyo yung nanay nyo. Maaga ba akong inawat? Paano ba ako inawat? O sobra ako sa satisfaction. Dahil matanda na ako, dumedede pa rin ako sa feeding bottle. Baka kasi kayo ito. Differentiate natin oral receptive. Reception. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng oral needs ay papasok sa bibig. Ang oral aggressive naman, that's another fixation. Palabas naman yung kanyang ibinibigay. So, oral receptive, pasok sa loob ng bibig. Oral aggressive, labas sa loob ng, labas coming from the mouth. Okay? So, kailan ka nagkakaroon ng oral receptive or oral aggressive? Hindi mo ma-measure. Pwede kasi yun na maging oral aggressive ka dahil kulang or dahil sobra. Pwede ka ring maging oral receptive dahil kulang or sobra. Anything goes. Pero tingnan natin mabuti. Ano yung mga oral aggression? Example, overeating. Yung kapag stress, kain ng kain. Ayan. Ano pa? Smoking is also a sign of oral fixation under the oral receptive. Overeating, drinking alcohol, yahan, nail biting. I-notice ninyo yung sarili ninyo. Nagne-nail bite ba kayo? Thumb sucking. Those are examples also of oral receptive needs. Kasi, Ayun. But at the same time, oral aggressive din yung biting, no? Pareho siyang pwede. You bite your nails kasi kinakagat mo siya. Aside from, kung ipinapasok mo lang, sorry, no, medyo may error ako doon. Kung thumb sucking lang, oral receptive yon. Pero pag may biting na kasama, oral aggressive yon. Tandaan natin, kapag binabite mo siya, oral aggressive yon. Tapos, yung makwento, madaldal, oral aggressive din yan. Si mga marites natin dyan, oral aggressive. Tapos, cursing, it's also oral aggressive. So, those are the stages of fixation, or sorry, those are the fixation under the oral stage. I hope it's clear unto you. Okay? Next, we also have the second stage of development, which is the anal stage. Now, under the anal stage, this happens during 2 to 3 years old. And of course, the erogenous zone or the pleasure zone is your anus. So, ang significant person during this point of time is the father or the father figure. Now, bakit father figure? Because I call this stage of development as the stage of holding on and letting go, because this is the stage of development whereby the child is trained with peeing and defecating. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Toilet training. The toilet training stage is the anal stage. And the person, according to Freud, who should be there during the stage of this time, toilet training, is the father. Why? Because this is actually the stage which is the first independence of the child. Anong ibig sabihin ng first independence of the child? Ibig sabihin nun, ito yung tinuturuan natin ang bata na magkaroon ng unang stage ng independence niya. Siya yung magdedesisyon kung kailan niya i-hold on ang pee at ang poop niya at kailan niya i-let go. Kaya nga, yun yung toilet training na tinatawag. At kung i-compare mo ito kay Erik Erikson, pareho naman anal stage is somewhat similar to the trainings being said, although social yung orientation ni Erikson, to the stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt. Autonomy means independence also. And it's also during the anal stage that the father is there. The significant person, the father, is the one, according to Freud, who should be there for the child to be taught with autonomy or independence by toilet training. Now, what happens in the absence of the father? There has to be somebody who could replace the father to teach independence. But then again, there are cases that, according to Freud, mothers are overnourishing and they give what the child needs. So, medyo maluwag ang mother. Kaya si father ang hinahanap. Therefore, in this stage of development, there are also fixations that could happen. Okay? Overly trained or not trained, ito yung fixation. So, we have here, the child can be anal retentive or anal expulsive. Anal retentive would be you hold on too much. Anal expulsive is that you kumbaga, nagbibigay ka naman ng sobra. You give it, okay, palabas. Ito rin naman, you retain yung anal retentive. So, ano yung manifestations nito? Actually, most of Filipino children has fixation in the anal stage. Why? Because it is the very nature of our culture that the father is the one working. So, therefore, the father is not present during this stage of development. It's the mother who is present. So, we know the characteristics of our mother. They love us so much. So, ayun. So, kaya ito yung usual na kumbaga fixation natin. Anal retentive, sila yung over naman. Yung retention nila. Okay? Ayaw mag-let go nito. So, ano yung mga nangyayari kapag ka anal retentive ka? Sila yung pwedeng maging OC. Obsessive compulsive sila sa cleanliness, orderliness, perfection, and control. And at the same time, yung mga anal retentive, sila din yung hindi makapag-let go at hirap mag-move on. Nagkaroon na ba kayo ng kaklase na nag-quiz kayo, tapos medyo hindi maganda yung score niya dun sa quiz na yon, hanggang sa isang linggo na yung nakaraan dun sa quiz na yon, hanggang nung time na yon, hindi pa rin siya maka-move on na nag-fail siya dun sa quiz na yon. Yan yung mga hindi makapag-let go. Sino sa mga kaibigan ninyo ang pag pumasok kayo doon sa bahay nila, nakalagay pa doon yung unang beses na binigay na candy nung boyfriend niya, yung pinagbalatan nandun at kinolekta na lahat ng mga ganito kasi ang laging sinasabi nila may significant value, may significant siya sa kanila, may sentimental value, that's the term. Kaya ang dami-daming mga basyo-basyo doon sa bahay kasi nga hindi ma-let go. Yung mga pinaglumaang mga damit na laging sinasabi may attachment ng sentimental value, pwede na sanang ipamana at ipamigay, hindi maibigay-bigay. Kaya pati yung mga baby dresses nandun pa rin. Why? Kasi nga they cannot let go. Okay? Sila din yung mga anal retentive, sila din yung mga tao na kapag may nakita na gusot-gusot sa gamit, paulit-ulit nilang nililinis yon. At pag tinignan nyo yung dresser, pantay-pantay talaga yung mga damit nila. Kulay-kulay yan. Yan, obsessive compulsive. Yun yung anal retentive. Anal expulsive. These are people naman na since hindi masyadong na-train mabuti, anong nangyayari? Ayun, pag pumasok ka sa kwarto, kabaligtaran ni OC, makalat. Okay? Makalat yan. At isa sa mga bagay na I just discovered as characteristics of people with anal expulsive, they give a lot. They give a lot. Kapag nagkaroon yan, when they have money and when they earned something, ay, for sure, they'll be giving people gifts even if wala namang okasyon. These are people who are anal expulsive. Aside from, yun na may positive things sa kanila. Kaya lang, to the extreme kasi sila. At yun nga, disorganized and messy. Yung makalat na pero para sa kanila, okay pa naman yun. Okay? So, alamin nyo mabuti, ano ang inyong fixation. Okay? So, the next stage of development after the anal stage is, of course, the phallic stage. Okay? The phallic stage. What's the phallic stage? This is the stage whereby the erogenous zone is the genitals, so meaning the female and the male sexual organ depending on the biological predisposition. And then the significant persons here are both parents. Why both parents? Because if the child is a male, the father has to be there so that the child could relate to the father. And then if it's a girl, the mother should be there so that the girl could relate to the mother. Now, at this point of development, ang goal natin sana dito is that children must be interested on what makes boys and girls different. That if I am a boy, I should be exemplifying like a boy. These are the things that I should prepare because I'm a male. These are the things that I should be prepared and I should want because I'm a girl. That's the point also that the girl has to relate with the mother and the boy has to relate with the father. This is the development also of castration anxiety, which eventually also leads to identification with the parent of the same sex. Now, what happens if the child would not be able to relate with the parents of the same sex? For instance, the mother is not present, tapos girl yung bata, and then all the people in the environment that he sees are all males. Okay? Anong mangyayari? Ano rin ang mangyayari kung lalaki yung bata and all that he sees are female instead of a male figure? Anong mangyayari? Okay? It could lead to fixation. Okay. At this point of time, the first sexuality of the child, remember, is seen during the phallic stage. So therefore, kapag nagkaroon ng fixation at hindi nakarelate sa nanay at sa tatay, dito yung unang-unang pagkakataon na maaaring magkaroon ng fixation ng bata. At ang tawag sa fixation na yon ay, aside from Electra complex and Oedipus complex, ay gender identity crisis, which may lead to, in the future, homosexuality. So kung titignan ninyo, yung unang realization ng bata na, or conviction ng bata na male ako, boy ako, is during the phallic stage. So just imagine, as early as 3 to 6 years old, pwede nang magkaroon ng confusion yung bata at magkaroon ng gender identity crisis. Kung hindi naman yon ang magiging fixation niya, pwede siyang magkaroon ng Electra complex and Oedipus complex. Electra complex and Oedipus complex, pareho silang galing sa mythological characters. Now, ano ang Electra complex? Let's take it short. Sa Electra complex, the female will be relating to the father at first. At first, magkakaroon ng penis envy. Naiingit siya kasi the society regards the father as a person of higher authority until such point of time na makaka-relate siya sa father niya. And then, according to Freud, not according to me, the child would fall romantically with the father. At ganun din ang Oedipus complex. Ang Oedipus complex, the boy would be relating to the mother until such point of time that he will eventually fall for the mother. Katulad nung nangyari kay Oedipus the king, because he killed the father accidentally without knowing that it's his father, he got to marry the queen who is the mother. Electra complex was first actually, si Freud talaga nagpangalan yan. At sa kanya nanggaling yung unang pasyente na may Electra complex. At yun ay known social worker. Ang pangalan niya is Roberta Pappenheim. So siya yung unang-unang nagkaroon ng Electra complex at ang psychologist niya ay dapat si Eric Berne, pero pinalitan siya ni Sigmund Freud. And it is Sigmund Freud who coined the term Electra complex. Okay? So that's stage 3, phallic stage. And the nice thing about it is the stage number 4. During the stage 4, which is the latency stage, that's 6 years old to puberty, the significant person here are other people. And at this point of time, nako-cover up na yung sexual urges. Dahil nagfo-focus na yung bata sa socialization and in getting to other people, because the child is now more focused on physical and academic skills. Dahil nasa elementary stage na siya. Kaya mas nakaka-relate na siya dahil kanina pinag-usapan natin girls should be girls, boys should be boys. Yun na yung point of time na the person, ang impact nun kapag nagkaroon ng problem doon sa phallic stage, dito na magmamanifest sa latency stage kung kaninong grupo pupunta yung bata. Okay? If okay tayo at maayos during the phallic stage, of course, boys will be going to boys, girls will be going to girls. Now, fixation here, you'll be able to see, katuloy ito noong phallic stage. Nang sasamahan ng bata, of course, is the opposite sex. Kung nakaka-relate siya sa mother, kahit boy siya, dun siya pupunta sa girls. Okay? That's latency stage. So this is more of academic and play activities. Now, during the genital stage, this is puberty onwards. And at this point of time, the ideal point, according to Freud, is that the focus of urges is now the person of the opposite sex. This is now the point of time that we start to have crushes and get to be intimate with the opposite sex. Okay? So that's the genitalia stage. And those are the stages of psychosexual development according to Sigmund Freud. So I hope it is clear unto you. Okay? Now, apart from the stages of psychosexual development by Sigmund Freud, I would like to add the discussion of the structures of growing personality. Freud also is the principal author of the iceberg principle, the conscious, the subconscious, and then the unconscious. He actually said that the conscious is only 10% of the whole personality of the child, meaning you are only aware of 10% of who you are. And then you have repressed dreams, repressed ideas. Now, aside from that, one of the things that you have to learn in the concept of psychoanalysis is the structures of growing personality. We have three structures of personality. You have the id, the ego, and the superego. The id, the ego, and superego. I want you to clearly understand the differences among these three. The id, remember, is dominated by the pleasure principle. Okay? The first to grow to a person is the id. Each of us has our id. Pagkapanganak mo, may id ka na kaagad. Okay? And you are dominated mainly by the pleasure principle. Pagka si id. Ano si id? Id is part of your personality which tells you that it wants immediate gratification of needs. Bakit immediate gratification of needs? Kasi ang prinsipyong ipinaglalaban nga niya ay pleasure. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Lahat ng makapagpapasaya sa iyo. What are the manifestations? Since kay baby, id lang ang meron, kapag nagutom, iiyak. Okay? Because he wants immediate gratification of needs. Look at the toddler na nagpabili sa'yo ng laruan sa mall. Dahil wala kang pambili at hindi mo nabilan, anong gagawin? Magtatantrums, magtatatarang. Okay? At ikaw naman magagalit ka. Hindi ka pwedeng magalit. Why? Kasi nga, at that point of time, ang meron pa lang sa kanya ay si id. So, kailangan mo explain sa kanya mabuti para mabuo si ego. Okay? Because after the id, ang susunod na dapat na maging present sa bata ay si ego. Okay? Anong trabaho ni ego? Ego is working under reality principle. How does it work? If id wants immediate gratification of needs and the id will always say, go, 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 ego will say, wait. Reality principle. Ego delays the gratification of needs by looking for a proper social mechanism. I will repeat. The ego looks for the proper social mechanism. Thus, it delays the gratification of needs. Anong ibig sabihin? Kung hindi pwede, ang sasabihin ni ego, wait lang. But ego will not say no. Hindi siya magno-no. Ang sasabihin lang niya, wait. Okay? Wait in a sense that things in the environment has to go with it first before you can have it. Example, at the early in the morning, nakarinig ka ng ice cream. Okay? At si id, dahil paborito mo yon, ang sasabihin sa'yo ni id, bili ka na nun, kain ka na. Kakagising mo lang. It's early in the morning. Ang sabi ng nanay, huwag mo nang kakainin kasi, huwag mo nang bibili, huwag mo nang kakain kasi nga, sasakitan tiyan mo. So what does it mean? The environment doesn't permit it. It's not realistic. So si id gusto niya immediate gratification, pero magi-intervene si ego at ang sasabihin niya, wait lang. Okay? Sige, bumili ka, lagay mo muna sa rep, kumain ka muna, pagkakain mo, saka ka kumain ng ice cream. That's reality principle. Okay? The ego will always tell you to wait. Okay? It will just delay, but it will not say no. Now, the third structure of growing personality, which is somewhat present to adults, and actually, it's already present in adolescents. The superego. The superego is the morality principle. It's working under morality principle. Why? It actually tells you what is right and what is wrong, and it actually consults first parental rules, societal rules, religious rules, depende doon sa bank of morality principle mo. If it's of the church, of the family, of the society. yung norm nung mga yon, tatanungin muna ni superego bago siya mag-yes at bago siya mag-no. Okay? Kung si ego doesn't say no to the id, superego will say no. If it is not right and it doesn't follow the standard of the parents, the society, the church, and kung ano man, the law, then superego will say no. Yun ang task ni super. Okay? That's the work of the id, ego, and the superego. Sino ang laging magkalaban? It's the id and the superego. Anong ginagawa ni ego? The ego balances what id wants and what superego wants. Okay? By looking for an appropriate mechanism which is approved by the superego before it will say yes to the id. So, sa bawat tao, merong ganito. Minsan iisipin mo, pag gustong-gusto mo yung isang bagay, si id yung nagpe-pressure sa'yo yan. Yung sa Lazada, halimbawa, or Shopee. Shopee, 1-1. 2-2. 12-12. Yung mga sale na yan. Dahil ang mumura ng mga makikita mo, si id talagang sasabihin sa'yo, nabilin mo na yan. Sige na, kumuha ka na yan. Pero, si ego, i-delay niya. Okay? At si superego, kung wala kang pera, sasabihin niya, huwag mong bilhin yan. Pero si ego, ang sasabihin sa'yo, sige, pag-ipunan mo muna. It will satisfy both parties. So that's the work of id, ego, and superego. And those are the structures of growing personality. And that's the perspective of Sigmund Freud in development. Okay? Now, that's the lesson. So we now go to the formative test. Okay? Okay. Let's start with the first question. One of the main problems of teacher Kirby's pupils is the inability to manage peeing and defecating. This problem is depicted in what stage of development according to Freud? Again, one of the main problems of teacher Kirby's pupil is the inability to manage peeing and defecating. This problem is depicted in what stage of development according to Freud? A. Oral. B. Anal. C. Phallic. D. Latency. How are you going to answer this? Mainly just look into the erogenous zone of each of the stages and the main concept underlying on it. Okay? So, with that, I hope you got the answer correctly. Of course, oral stage is the stage of satisfying the mouth. Letter B, which is the correct answer, is for toilet training. So basically, it's the answer to the question. Phallic stage is of course relating to the same sex, and then latency stage is more of the academic activities. So therefore, the answer is letter B. Next question. By what age does a child first develop a sense of sexuality? Okay. By what age does the child develop a sense of sexuality? Is it letter A, ages 2 to 3? B, 3 to 6? C, 6 to 12? D, 12 and onwards. So you're gonna look at it carefully. Kailan ba nagkakaroon ng first sexuality ang bata? We mentioned it earlier that it is during the phallic stage. Ano ba ang edad ng bata on the phallic stage? Basta dapat alam nyo yung unang-unang stage kung ilang taon. So dahil alam nyo na infancy yon, oral stage is infancy, ang infancy is birth to 2 years, so wala siya dyan. So ano yung kasunod na stage? Yung 2 to 3 ay anal stage. So basically, yung 2 to 3 years old, yung letter A, it's talking about anal stage. So that's not the right answer. Ang susunod sa anal stage ay phallic stage. So 3 to 6 years old yon. So yun yung tamang sagot. And then, so on na yon, no? Susunod na si latency, and then, alam nyo rin yung end part, puberty yung genitalia, yun yung age 12 and onwards. part. So, yun yung mga basic things na kinakailangan mong tandaan. Ano yung edad nung unang stage, ano yung edad nung last stage, para magiging madali na lang sa inyo yung pagko-cross out ng hindi tamang sagot. Next. Now, teacher A's observed that her first year high school students, has tendency to be very assertive, insisting what they want despite his objection. The assertive characteristics of adolescents are attributed to what structure of personality? A, id, B, ego, C, superego, D, id, and superego. Assertive. Assertiveness is a characteristic of what? A person who wants to win and who wants his ideas to supersede other ideas. And what structure of personality is there? Of course, it's not superego, because sa superego, the person should have followed the teacher. Okay? Is it the ego? Walang delay eh. Nag-assert ka agad. So, dapat ang naging sagot nyo dyan ay letter A, id. Okay? A is the correct answer. Now, Teacher Zaira had a marshmallow experiment. She gave each pupil a piece of marshmallow and told them not to eat it until she announced that the class is dismissed. There were 60% who ate marshmallow before the end of the class, while the other 40% waited until the dismissal. What will be Teacher Zaira's conclusion? A. Some of the students are pleasure seeker, thus they were dominated by id. B. Most students had difficulties delaying their desire for the marshmallow. C. Most of the students adheres to follow their ego. Letter D. Some of the students are morally upright since they follow Teacher Zaira. Okay, concept that you have to follow, most. Pag ginamit doon sa test ninyo yung most, that's more than 50%. Okay? Kapag ginamit yung some, that's less than 50%. So, tingnan nyo mabuti. Ang sabi kanina, 60% ate the marshmallow before the dismissal, and only 40% delayed eating it until the dismissal. So, ano yung dapat na maging conclusion ni Teacher Zaira? Okay? Ang dapat maging conclusion niya ay letter B. Most students had difficulties delaying their desires for the marshmallow. Okay. So, I hope your answers are correct. Okay? So, that's all for our lesson. Just wait for the next video for another topic in the stages of development. By the next video, we'll be discussing cognitive development theory by John Piaget. Okay, so thank you so much. Goodbye.